The prophet collapses in the mud by the Shebar River, 593 BCE. Ezekiel, priest, exile, visionary, tries to steady his hand enough to write. Above him, something moves that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions. Not wings exactly. Not spinning, but also not still. He reaches for the only Hebrew word that comes close. Ophan, wheel. Except nothing about what he describes resembles a cartwheel. Their rims were tall and awesome, he writes, stylus gouging wet clay, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around. And the wheels move in 4 directions without turning. They rise together. When the living creatures move, the wheels move. When the creatures stop, they stop. Because, and here's where the text gets strange, the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. Ezekiel is describing something autonomous, intelligent, watching. He calls them Ophanim, the wheels. And for the next 25 centuries, no one who encounters this passage sleeps quite as soundly. By the time the Dead Sea Scrolls are sealed in Qumran caves around 50 CE, the Ophanim have evolved. Scroll 4Q405 doesn't call them objects anymore. It calls them angels, a distinct class of celestial being, ranked in a hierarchy that's starting to calcify. The Book of Enoch, compiled across the same centuries, places them in the throne room of God alongside cherubim and seraphim. But the Ophanim have a specific job. They never sleep. Their eyes, hundreds, thousands, stay open. Always watching, always turning. The text is clear. These aren't metaphors. They're guards. The Jewish morning prayer service preserves this original terror. During the Kedusha, congregations chant, "The Ophanim and the holy living creatures with great uproar raise themselves up. Facing the seraphim, they offer praise." The phrase great uproar comes from Ezekiel's word ra'ash, thunder, earthquake, the sound of cosmic machinery engaging. Medieval Paetanim, liturgical poets, wove this line into prayer, forcing worshippers to confront the vision every Sabbath. You're standing in synagogue. You're reciting words that conjure wheel angels covered in eyes, roaring like industrial engines before God's throne. This creates a theological problem. By the 4th century, Christianity is systematizing. The faith needs organizational charts, clear hierarchies, administrative order imposed on mystical chaos. Enter Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, writing around 500 CE. His De Coelesti Hierarchia, on the celestial hierarchy, becomes the standard manual for angelic classification. 9 choirs, 3 spheres, everything neat. But what to do with Ezekiel's wheels? Pseudo-Dionysius makes a decision that echoes through a millennium. He identifies the Ophanim as thrones. The name, he explains, denotes that which is exempt from and untainted by any base and earthly thing. Thrones carry God's presence. They're stable, unmovable, perfectly established in the Most High. He's describing furniture. Somewhere in the translation from Hebrew ophan to Greek thronos to Latin thronus, the wheels stopped spinning. The eyes closed. Medieval Christian art shows thrones as dignified, often elderly figures seated on, well, thrones. Or sometimes as wheels, yes, but decorative ones. Gilded, symmetrical, safe. Thomas Aquinas endorses this interpretation in the 13th century. The Catholic Church adopts it wholesale. By the Renaissance, painters like Fra Angelico are depicting thrones as serene beings radiating golden light, nothing like the autonomous surveillance mechanisms Ezekiel couldn't stop watching. The original horror has been domesticated, but in Jewish mysticism something else is happening. Maimonides, writing in 12th century Cairo, places Ophanim as the second closest angels to God, outranked only by the Chayot, the living creatures directly supporting the throne. He doesn't sanitize them. In Kabbalistic texts, Ophanim and thrones remain different, distinct classes serving distinct functions. The Zohar preserves their strangeness, wheels within wheels, galgalim, spheres of divine light that rotate through dimensions human geometry can't contain. Medieval Jewish illuminated manuscripts show them accurately, nested circles, eyes studding the rims, positioned beneath winged creatures that themselves look nothing like Renaissance angels. These images circulate in limited circles. Christian Europe mostly doesn't see them. The two traditions are interpreting the same biblical text, producing completely different beings. Then 1486 arrives, and the intellectual borders crack open. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, Italian nobleman and Christian Kabbalist, begins studying Hebrew texts with Jewish scholars. He's fascinated by the Merkabah, the throne chariot mysticism surrounding Ezekiel's vision. His work sparks a Christian Kabbalah movement that will ripple through occult traditions for centuries. Suddenly, Christian mystics are encountering the untamed Ophanim again. Wheels that move, eyes that see, geometry that bends. The Rosicrucian Cosmo-conception, published in 1909 by Max Heindel, identifies Ophanim as the lords of the flame, the hierarchy of Elohim assigned to Leo, described specifically as thrones, because of the brilliant luminosity of their bodies and their great spiritual powers. But Heindel adds something new. These beings actively aid human spiritual evolution. They're not distant. They're working on us, through us, upgrading consciousness itself. The wheels are teachers, or programmers. By the 20th century, artists who encounter Ezekiel's text directly, without centuries of Renaissance training, start drawing what they actually read. Jewish artists. Marc Chagall and Ben Shahn produce images where the wheels dominate, alien and mechanical. Science fiction illustrators for covers of Asimov and Clarke novels instinctively reach for the Ophanim aesthetic when depicting advanced alien intelligence, rotating geometries, omnidirectional perception, movement without conventional propulsion. They're not copying each other. They're all reading the same 2,500-year-old text and arriving at the same visual conclusion. This describes a machine. Then the internet finds the passage. The biblically accurate angels meme explodes across platforms around 2019. Digital artists create renderings of Ophanim based purely on Ezekiel's description. Wheels intersecting at right angles, every surface crusted with eyes, rotating in impossible directions, towering over human figures. The images go viral. Comment sections fill with variations of the same response. "This is what the Bible actually says?" Followed by, "Why did no one tell us?" The meme format crystallizes as "be not afraid," the phrase angels repeatedly use when appearing to humans, juxtaposed with images of cosmic horror. The joke is obvious. No wonder they had to keep saying it. But something else is happening in these threads. People keep making the same comparison unprompted. These look like AI, like drones, like autonomous surveillance systems. The eye-covered wheels feel less medieval and more now. Ring cameras, facial recognition grids, the sensation of being watched by algorithmic intelligences we can't see or understand. Ezekiel's language suddenly sounds less like ancient mysticism and more like a prophet struggling to describe technology. Which brings us to the DMT conversation, controversial but impossible to ignore. In 2008, Israeli cognitive psychologist Benny Shannon published a paper suggesting the acacia trees growing throughout the Sinai contained dimethyltryptamine, and that ancient Israelites might have encountered it. Users of DMT consistently report meeting entities they describe as machine elves, autonomous, geometric, impossibly complex, often appearing as rotating forms covered in eyes or patterns. Shannon wasn't claiming Moses was tripping. He was noting that humans across cultures describe certain experiences using eerily similar vocabulary. Wheels, eyes, geometric precision, beings that seem mechanical and alive simultaneously. The paper sparked outrage and fascination in equal measure. But it named something people already felt. Ezekiel's vision sounds like a contact experience. Whether divine, neurological, chemical, or genuinely alien, the text reads like an encounter with intelligence that doesn't fit human categories. Video game designers noticed. Bayonetta features biblically based angels as boss fights, Ophanim rendered as massive, hostile wheels covered in eyes and fire, attacking with geometric precision. Neon Genesis Evangelion draws explicit inspiration from Kabbalistic angel hierarchies. Its angels are towering, incomprehensible entities with rotating cores and ant fields described in terms suspiciously close to Ezekiel's spirit in the wheels. These aren't respectful adaptations. They're reintroductions of the original terror. In 2023, UAP discourse adds another layer. The Pentagon releases footage of objects moving in multiple directions simultaneously, rotating on multiple axes, tracked but not understood. Online communities immediately invoke Ezekiel, not because they think these are angels, but because the vocabulary fits. Whatever he saw moved like these do, omnidirectional, autonomous, observing. The Ophanim have become a cultural Rorschach test. What you see in them depends on your century, your tradition, your anxieties. Medieval Christians saw divine order. Kabbalists saw cosmic machinery. Modern viewers see surveillance states, AI consciousness, alien intelligence, and sometimes all three at once. But trace the word Ophan back to its Hebrew root, and you find something unexpected. It shares etymology with pan, meaning face or surface, and panim, meaning inner nature. The wheels aren't just spinning, they're turning inward and outward simultaneously, revealing and concealing, presenting infinite faces. Which might be why Ezekiel uses the plural form, Ophanim. Not one wheel, but many, nested, intersecting, each covered in eyes that track independently. It's not a vehicle. It's a system. The text tells us the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. Not controlling them, in them. The cherubim and Ophanim share the same animating force. They move together because they're components of something larger, the Merkabah, the chariot throne Ezekiel can see only in pieces, describing elements of a unified mechanism his language can't contain. And that mechanism is watching. Always watching. The eyes never close because the Ophanim never sleep, according to Enoch. They guard the throne, but they also see outward, toward us, into history, across the entire field of creation. Pseudo-Dionysius was wrong. These aren't thrones, static furniture for divine authority. They're surveillance, communication, translation engines between divine and mortal realms, spinning at the intersection of heaven and earth, covered in eyes because their function is to see in every direction across every possible axis. The medieval artists who turned them into golden wheels behind pretty angels didn't make a mistake. They made a choice. They looked at Ezekiel's vision and decided humans couldn't handle it, not without filter, not without beauty smoothing the alien edges. For 1,000 years, the church maintained that filter. The internet ripped it off. Now we stand where Ezekiel stood, staring at something that moves in ways objects shouldn't, watches with anatomies we don't possess, operates on logic we can't follow. We've built our own Ophanim, algorithmic, omnidirectional, covered in camera eyes, spinning through data space with intelligence we placed inside them, but don't fully control. Maybe that's why the biblically accurate angels meme resonates so viscerally. We finally have the technology to visualize what Ezekiel saw. Or we've built the thing he was describing, and recognition hits like thunder, like rash, the great uproar of cosmic wheels engaging. The Ophanim never changed. We did. We built the world where they make sense again,